In this assignment, we will be using the frame-by-frame animation to create a lip-syncing animation. So the first thing that you need to do is to go online or to look in my library for a movie quote. And it can be a short one, around 4 to 5 seconds. Make sure that it's school appropriate, and you will be using that quote inside of Flash to practice your lip syncing. You're going to make the lips that you draw look like they're following along with these words. So we'll learn a couple of principles here. We're going to learn how to reuse things that we've drawn to make our frame-by-frame animations a little simpler, and we'll also begin putting sounds into Flash, which is a fairly simple process, but there is some weird things about it that we'll have to take care of. My first step is I have to draw all of the mouths that I want. So as I am starting to develop my character, I want to think about how that character is going to talk, how the mouth is going to move. And in a lot of circumstances, I'll be able to use the same mouths over and over again. And I have a kind of a cycle of the mouths that I use that I really enjoy, and it's from Chris Giornas, who is a Flash animator, very famous one, and that is right here that we can look at. In this cycle, and you can see the letters underneath. Those letters represent the sounds that the mouth will make if it looks like that. And we can see from these 9 mouths, we can create pretty much any kind of lip sync that we need to. I'm going to use this pretty much exactly, but you can think about how your character's mouth would be different from this and draw the mouth accordingly. Once again, I'm in Flash. I've used ActionScript 2.0, and I'm going to begin just by drawing my mouths. And I'll start with my closed mouth, which is right here, my MBP. I'm going to basically follow that exactly. So I'll get out my brush here and very quickly draw the mouth like that. And I'm going to use the whole screen. For this assignment, I want you to use that entire stage for your mouth, and then make the smaller one. And that is what I'm going to base all the other ones off of. Here's my closed mouth. And I know that I'm going to use a closed mouth again and again. Now, I could draw that every time I need to in my frame-by-frame animation, and sometimes that'll be even preferred. But in this case, I want to just use that closed mouth over and over again. And I can do that by turning this into a symbol. So I will select that entire mouth. And with my selection tool, the black arrow, I want to make sure that it is completely selected here, and press F8 to convert into symbol. Now, I'm just going to call this mouth MBP because those are the sounds that it can make. I'll put spaces between those. And once again, the only 2 types of symbols that we use are movie clips and buttons. I am not making a button, so I want to use movie clip. I'll set my registration to the center. That probably won't be a big deal, but I'll press OK. And then I'll see that mouth available in my library right here. And I have the blue bounding box around it that tells me that it is a symbol. And I could delete it here, drag it back in, and use it over and over again. Now, I want to draw my other mouths. I want to base them off of that original mouth. So while I'm here, I am going to create a new keyframe on frame 2 by pressing F7. I clicked on frame 2, hit F7, and then I'll turn on the onion skin so that I can see a faint outline of that. Now these 2 frames are only here so I can draw these. I'm going to get rid of all of this once I start doing my actual animating of the lip sync. So next one, I'm going to choose to do, let's do the A here. And so I'll use that as the basis again. Get out a bigger brush. And I'm just going to draw just very quickly here. And I got the teeth going across the top, and then a little bit of a tongue. And once I've drawn that, any closed off shape, I can use this paint bucket to fill in the other, all of any closed off areas. So I can make a mouth very quickly here. Select all of that again, press F8 to turn that into a symbol, and this one is just for the A. I'll make sure it's a movie clip, click OK. Then I can delete this one because once it's a symbol, I can very easily bring it in again as an instance from the library. So I'm just going to delete it so I can see my original mouth again and then draw the next one. And I think I will do next this WR. So I will get out my black brush again. And this time it kind of goes like that. And there's just a little bit of mouth, tongue visible at the bottom. Got the red and fill in the black. And then once again, I will highlight this, hit F8 to turn it into a symbol, and call this WR for those letters. Now I will pause this and continue going through and making all of the mouths, but you'll notice that in your library it could very easily become kind of overwhelming. If you have a lot of different symbols, it can get very confusing. Notice down here I also have an option for a folder, and I can place all of the symbols that go for the mouth inside its own folder. Click here on folder, change that to mouth, and then I can just select these and drag them in. And that way, when I want to use the mouth symbols, I can just click on the twirly here, open up all of those options for the mouth. So that's just a way to improve your workflow, keep your library organized, because a lot of sounds and images and videos and other files can go into this library, and it can become full very quickly. So I will now pause it and complete a couple more mouths. I want you to go ahead and make all 9 mouths as different symbols and place them in a folder in the library for this next part. I have now completed, I've done most of the mouths. You may decide that you might not need one of the mouths, like the U and the Q is pretty close to the O, so I can save myself some time by not doing those. But I've made all of those mouths into symbols, and I've placed them inside of a folder called mouth. And I still have 2 available on these 2 frames, so I can just delete them out of each of those frames. So delete there, go back to frame 1, and I probably will start with a closed mouth, so I'm going to go ahead and leave frame 1. Now, the way that sounds work. We need to import the sound. Whenever we bring in a file that's not a native file to that program, it's called importing it, and I want to import my file. So I can choose File, Import, and you'll see 2 different options in there. Import to stage, which brings it right onto the stage. We don't ever want to do that. It's always better just to bring something into the library, especially a sound. And the other option is Import to Library, which I will now pick. I have a whole bunch of options inside of my shared folder. And so we can go to there and pick some of the sound effects. I just found a bunch of movie quotes from the internet. If you go to Google and you type in movie quotes WAV, which is a WAV file, a common sound format, you can find your own. But right now I'm going to go find one. I've got one from Anchorman that I will be using. And this file is inside my shared folder under Digital Media 1, Unit 4 Flash, and number 4 Lip Syncing. That's today's assignment. And inside of there I have a folder called Movie Sounds. And I have some from Star Wars, Monty Python, a couple from Homer, Lord of the Rings, Napoleon Dynamite, Toy Story, and you can also find one of your own, but I don't want you to spend too much time on that. These are all about 4 to 5 seconds. If you'd like to do a longer one to get more practice in, that would be great as well. I will choose this one. This is Anchorman Stay Classy. So from import to library, if I double click on the WAV file that I want, and Flash can accept a lot of different audio formats, WAV and MP3 are probably your best bets. And this is a WAV file, so I'll double click on that, and because I chose import to library, it should import it immediately into here into my library. Now when I click on it, notice that it has its own little icon, a little speaker. I can see here the waveform, which is a visual representation of that sound, and I can even click here in this corner and say play to hear it.
I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego.
And that is, there isn't a lot of editing that I can do to the audio inside of Flash. I would want to do that beforehand in a program like Adobe Sound Booth or Audacity or GarageBand or anything that you have. If I right click in here, you can see that I can immediately edit with Sound Booth right from this, from Flash. So I can do that as well. Now, to bring this into the timeline is a kind of a weird process. Any new sound or audio effect or song should always be on its own layer. So I will immediately come up here to New Layer, choose this. I'm going to call it Stay Classy because that's what it says. And then I want to make sure that I'm on that layer because whatever layer I'm on, the sound will go into. I will lock the layer 1, my mouth layer, which I'm going to name mouth while I'm here, so that I can't accidentally choose that one. And just like anything else, a sound will go onto a keyframe. So no matter where I place it, it'll go back to the earliest little dotted keyframe frame. And the way that I do this, I can just drag it here from the library. And it feels like I should drag it onto the layer, but I can't. I have to drag it right onto the stage. So with that layer selected, I drag it onto the stage, let go, and it has worked. Now, a couple of things. First off, you should be able to see the little blue line? This will show us that same waveform that's over here on your layer. But right now I'm only seeing 2 frames, and this audio goes much more than 2 frames. It's about 4 seconds. So I need to extend this keyframe out to be the length of my sound. And I can do that by selecting it somewhere on there and by pressing F5. And you can see as I do that, the keyframe extends, and I can start to see that waveform. And because of that, I can now highlight that out to be the entire length of the animation. I can hold down F5 or whatever I need to do to make sure it's the right length. If I go too far, so that is where my waveform ends. If it goes too far, I can always select the frames that I don't want by holding down my mouse, right-clicking somewhere in the selection, and say remove frames. And that'll get rid of those ones. So I have right now 70 frames of audio. Right now, as I mouse over it, I can't hear it. We have to do something else to our sound, and we should always do this when we're working in animation. You can click anywhere on this sound layer, the sound frame. I'll click right here to get the properties for that sound. And by default, the sync should be event. And that's something that is more for the programming side of Flash. I always want to come here and change event to stream. Stream will do a couple of things for me. One, it'll make sure that our animation is always lined up with the sound in that frame. The other thing I can do now is I can do what's called audio scrubbing. And that means if I hold down my mouse on the timeline indicator and I drag, I can hear each individual frame of sound as well. And that will help me to keep to be able to see what the mouse should be doing at each frame and to change that accordingly. So let's go through and start to do a little bit of this animation. I'm going to move my timeline indicator ahead a little bit until I can hear the sound. So right there is where my first sound is. So I can come ahead here. I'm going to clear this keyframe and go back forward to that sound. And every time I want a new mouth, I want to go to that point on my mouth layer, which I can now unlock, and hit F7. It'll extend the previous frame to that point. My previous frame was just that closed mouth. And here, I'm getting it's the I'm. So I'm going to pick a part of my mouth that would look like I'm saying I'm. And I'm going to pick the A as one that is similar enough. So I can come down to my mouth folder, open that up, find the mouth that I want, and I can see examples of those in that little window. And I will choose A, and I'm going to drag that out onto the stage, and using my onion skin, line it up to be the same as in the same place as my closed mouth. So now, and I can also hit enter to run it through very quickly. So here it's I'm, and the M I think starts about right here. So I'm going to click on that point, hit F7 again to create a new keyframe, and I need a closed mouth for this part. So I'm going to go back to my MBP mouth, move that to the correct spot, and I can even use the left and right arrows to be more precise in the place that I drop it. So these are the up, down, left, and right arrows. And then I'm, so there's where the R starts for Ron, so I'm going to come to that point, hit F7 again, use, I've got this one here that's specifically for R, and the R goes pretty quick, 2 frames there, change to the O for Ron, the N starts there, F7 again, drag my N mouth. Right there's where the B starts. So I'm hitting F7 every time to create a new empty keyframe, which I can then drag in the mouth that I need for this case. So I could just draw these mouths every single time, but a lot of times I can save a lot of trouble by using the same element over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and get all the way through burgundy. So so right here, and I want there to be so maybe there for the U. And then burr, so that might all be one. So there's the G. And this is all kind of just a feel, and you have to remember that this is happening in 1/24th of a second. So if you're not exact, or if you need to go back and change it later, that's also really easy to do. So it's not the end of the world if you can't quite place the sound, but the closer you get, the more accurate it'll look. So 7. And then I'll end it with a closed mouth. And when I play this, when I hit Control and Enter to play it, I should get something that looks pretty
I'm
close.
Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego.
And so now I can go through this. I've got a long sequence of nothing, so I can skip ahead here to the next time and hit F7 so that that whole sequence has the previous keyframe, which is the closed mouth, and go all the way through and complete this assignment by lip syncing the entire quote. And this process, I think, is a lot of fun. It saves us a lot of time because we can just use those same mouths over and over again. And think about how you can use this when we move into our personal animation to save yourself some time for your voiceovers, because you'll be doing a lot of sound work on this animation as well, including voiceovers from you or your friends, music, sound effects, and other various things that we'll talk about later.